Greetings, people. It's Paul at Greenshire Homestead. I'm going to do a video here on how I start my seedlings in 3.5-inch pots. I start my seed. I did a video on using the little seed cells here with the dome lid process. That doesn't produce. It's too much work and too much effort going in. So I have for the last 12 years I've been using these 3-inch pots. I buy these in bulk. I've been using these pots for probably 6 years. They last a long time. Eventually they'll start to crack, but these work really well. You don't have to transplant your seedlings from these little cells into the bigger pots, and then from here into the garden you can just grow your seedling. Plant your seed in here and grow your seedling in here, so the seedling is transplanted less often, which is better for the plant, and they really do grow very well in here. In these, you're not able to get actual garden soil in there. You just use your soilless mix, which I use the Coco Loco here, and I also use the Coco Loco in these. But in the bottom of these trays, I fill them up halfway with, I've got a material soil here. This is a mixture of compost and garden soil and shredded leaves. I shred the leaves, and it's about a half and half compost and half just good black dirt from the garden, or my black dirt pile, and then I add shredded leaves into that. So here's a couple of the shredded leaves. The shredded leaves help hold moisture, and they do give some nutrient, but they add a lot of fluff and all to the soil. So first thing I would do is I get my large watering can here. I would have already had filled this with water and set it out in the sun for several hours and let it get nice and warm, and then I would go ahead and pour about a quart of water into half a bucket filled with this garden mix, and then just reach down in there and start turning, get all the way down to the bottom of the pot and get this thoroughly turned so that the water is incorporated in that soil very thoroughly. Then add about another quart and just keep doing that until the garden soil is such that when you squeeze a clump of it together, it'll stay together. See how that crumbles apart? It's dry, but you want to be able to pick it up, squeeze it gently, and then let go, and it all sticks together. This may do that. No, it's not going to either. It kind of does, but the consistency of moisture that you're looking for would be like if you took a sponge and soaked it up with water and then wrung it out a little bit to where you can suspend the sponge in air and it doesn't drip. There's no drips coming from the sponge, but if you were to squeeze it, water would come out. So that's what you want here. You want to be able to take a clump of dirt like this, and I'm not squeezing, I'm just holding it, and I don't want any water dripping from that. But if I were to squeeze it, I want water to come out. I want water to run out just like it would if it was a damp sponge and I squeezed a damp sponge that still had water in it. That's the consistency you're looking for. Now, once you have that, then, like I said, I'm going to take this soil and I'm going to fill each of these pots up halfway with the soil. The reason I'm only going halfway is because this is I've got a big pile of black dirt near my garden, and then I've got my compost. All the stuff I put in my compost, a lot of it's still going to have seed on it when I put it in there, and that black dirt's going to contain weeds. And then birds are going to be getting in my compost all the time, eating, and they're going to be pooping in there, and when they're pooping in there, they're going to be dropping seeds in their feces. So there is going to be some weed seed and some garden seed in the soil, and I do not want that to germinate. So when I fill that halfway up, it's filled halfway with that garden soil, then I come back through here and I put this courier in there. This is the coconut courier. I cover it up with that. Now that any seed that's down in underneath that coconut courier, the soilless mix, is not going to germinate because it's too deep. It's not going to germinate. It's not going to be able to come up through all that. So now, when I plant my gardens, my seed in there, I know what comes up is going to just be the seed that I planted, and the other stuff's not going to be able to come up, through 1.5 inches of this courier. So, and the reason that I put this in there, there's 2 reasons. First of all, my seedlings are going to be in here. Like my peppers, I'm going to start those in early March because peppers take a long time to grow. And so those peppers aren't going to be planted out into the garden till May 15th. So for 2 months, they're going to be growing in these pots. And they're going to need some food. And your soilless mix, it doesn't contain a lot of nutrient, if it contains any at all. A lot of them aren't going to contain any, but it's going to contain very little nutrient. But this is going to have good black dirt, and this is going to have compost in it. So it's going to feed my seedling very well, until which time I can go ahead and plant it in the garden. So, and then the other reason that I'm going to put that in there is this is free. This didn't cost me anything. It's shredded leaves, compost, and black dirt. None of which I paid for. I've got it in abundance. This is a 2-quart bag, or a 2 cubic foot bag. It's 52 quarts. It cost me $25. It's a big bag. That's how big the bag is, and it's down to here. This is how much of this I used last year getting my seedlings started. So you can see I go through a lot of this, even just filling these pots up halfway, because I'm going to start at a minimum. The minimum I'm going to have is 240 of these 3.5 inch pots. But then I'm also going to have other things that I'm going to start in other pots that. So I go through a lot of this. If I were to fill each of these up all the way with this, first of all, it's not going to feed my seedlings very well, and then second of all, I'm going to be spending a lot of money. So by doing it this way, I'm using half the amount of this. And then it's also better for my plants because as my seedlings are maturing, they're actually having something to really feed them well between that compost and that black dirt. So there I go, and I've filled those 3 up with the coconut courier and the garden soil. Gotten them tamped down, and it's time to put a seedling in there. Now remember, this is already nice and damp because I've added my water to this soil, so this is all really good and damp. And then I'm going to take my seedling, and this is a basil, and it says on here that you're to plant it just below the surface of the soil. So I know that probably means that it needs light to germinate. Okay, because if you're planting anything near or at the surface of the soil, that's generally an indication that seedling needs light to germinate. So I'm going to pour some seed into my palm. I'm not going to do it now. I'm just going to simulate. I'm going to pour seedling in some seed in my palm, and then I'm going to take 3, and I'm going to put them in each of these pots, and then make sure that there's some space in between them. I'll have a pencil or a stick or something where I can move them around a little bit, make sure that they've got plenty of space between them. I'm going to pour the remaining back into the seed packet, and then I'm going to take a little bit of the courier and put it over the top, spread it all out through the entire thing, and now it's just a little bit below the surface of the soil. I know that's properly been planted at the proper depth. All these 3 basils here will have been at the proper depth, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to spritz it with this spray bottle and get the surface nice and wet too. Don't want to use this. I know this looks silly for a dude to be carrying around this thing, and I feel silly carrying it around, but you try to water these things with something this size, and you're going to disrupt this soil a lot, and you're going to be ruining a lot of your work. So you're going to need to use something smaller like this when these seedlings start coming up. You're going to want to water with this, because you don't want to get the seedlings themselves all wet. That's going to promote bacteria and fungus. You just want the soil wet, and there's no way that you can water with something this size and not get the seedling wet. So that's another reason. Two reasons. You don't want to disrupt the soil, and you don't want to get the seedling all wet. So I'm going to go around the edge here, around the seedling, and it's going to take a little while, but you know, you're investing a lot of time and you're investing money, and you're building a future of heirloom seed, hopefully, and the food that you're going to be eating throughout the year. You do not want to destroy your possibilities by using something like this to water, just because you don't want to take the time to do it like this. I mean, it's going to take a while to water 240 pots going like this. I understand that, but this is the food I'm going to be eating this summer, next fall, and next winter, and into early next spring. You know, this is my food, so I'm going to take good care of it. And it's going to take me longer to water that way. Now, once these seedlings have grown and they're this tall, that's not a problem. Now I can come through here with this, because there's going to be enough roots that have grown throughout the pot that's going to hold the soil in place. I'm not going to have to worry anymore about the soil getting all shifted. And the seedlings are tall enough that I can get the head of this thing underneath those seedlings. So now, you know, I can start over here, and then I can come back, and I can not get the seedlings themselves, especially the leaves of the seedlings, all wet, just the soil. So at some point you will be able to use that, but when these guys are just little infants, you want to be using this. They're just like babies. You got to treat them tender and care. That's just the way it is. So I did, like I said, I put 3 seeds in each one of these, and at some point, maybe all 3 of them are going to come up, maybe just 1 or maybe 2. You want to narrow it down to 1. So you watch them grow for, you know, a couple of weeks, see which is the strongest one, and then pull the other 2 out. And I didn't mention that in the video that I did on the other, growing in the other seed containers, but yeah, you want to thin each pot down to 1 seedling. You don't want multiple seedlings growing in each pot, just 1. And so after the seedlings have been growing well, and they're going to have all that nutrition of that good quality garden soil down here in the bottom. So you're going to have healthy plants to put out in your garden, and then when you do plant them out in your garden, you're going to be adding the coconut coir and that compost and that good black dirt to your garden soil. So I think that pretty well covers it. So just you know, keep them misted. You're going to have to check on them every day. They're going to need to be watered at least once every day, and use this mister until those seedlings start coming up. And it, you know, this is not the bottle I use. This is a bottle I use as an anti-fungicide. I just have it out here. They're all empty right now because it's winter time. I don't want the bottles to, you know, freeze and crack. The water in them, they're to freeze and crack them. But have a larger, you know, mister, and just come through and just keep that soil nice and damp on the top. It's already going to be damp on the bottom because we pre-wet it. So I think that pretty much covers it. You know, when it comes time to, you do need to label these. I don't know if I mentioned that. Probably, I don't think I did. You know, during in fact, that's what I did last week. During January, I know what I'm going to grow. You should know what you're going to grow by now. You know, because it's end of January, and if you're going to be ordering garden seed, if you haven't done that, you should have, and you need to get on it, because they're going to take a few weeks to get here, and you're going to need to start starting your seeds in March, at least March. Some of you in February, because you got an earlier growing season. But you should know what you're going to grow, and you should know how much of each you're going to grow. So for each of these pots, you're going to have a sticker and say this is going to be Amish paste tomato, and I'm going to grow 6 Amish paste tomatoes. I'm going to put a sticker, fill out 6 stickers for Amish paste, and I'm going to put one on each of these pots. That's very important because I used to think, well, I'll remember what's there and I'll be able to identify things as they're coming up, but it makes it a lot easier on you if you label every pot. You can see the leftover stickers. The pen is, the ink has since faded or washed off, but I put a new sticker on the pots every year, so that's important that you have your stickers on there to identify what you got. So I'm going to be doing another video on the lighting, getting lighting over these. I have a greenhouse, so that's not an issue for me, but if you're growing these down in your basement, I've used my attic, I've used my basement, I've used spare bedrooms. You do have to have that lighting in order to get these things to grow well. I'm going to be doing a video on that too. It's rather in depth, and I'm going to tell you how to do it cheaply and how to do it very efficiently. So this is Paul at Greenshire Homestead. Good luck with your seed starting, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.